It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 34 of Foul Play. That's Fantasy Overwatch League Play. I am your host, Deathblow, joined, as always, by The Blevins and A. Smith. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
You know who I feel like? I feel like the King of the North this week.
The King of the North. He doesn't watch Game of Thrones, people. Just ignore him.
I was just throwing it out there.
He's already trying to buy fan favor.
Yeah, he's already trying, so we've got to shoot that down straight away. But since he won the last draft, today we are going to be drafting the best TV shows that aired during the 90s. A. Smith, of course, doesn't watch Game of Thrones, so we all know how good his TV takes are going to be. Also was born in the middle of the 90s. So
93, early 90s. Early 90s.
We had to handicap him a little bit here going into the next draft. We can't have any repeats, unless it's me winning back-to-back drafts. Of course, that would be okay.
Lol.
There will be a repeat here, and it will be me in third place, let's be honest.
That is 100% accurate.
Just keep throwing, Blevins. Just keep throwing. It'll be fine. But first, we do want to do our jobs a little bit here and break down some of what happened in Stage 2 for Overwatch League as far as fantasy purposes are concerned. We're going to wait to look ahead at Stage 3. We do have reason to believe that we're getting a 2-2-2 roll lock in Overwatch League by the time the break is over. Even if it's not in the game yet, they might push it to Overwatch League before the actual game gets it itself. So let's just start things right out. We're going to talk a little bit about some standout performers from Stage 2 and see if we can maybe help you guys identify what to do with some people in your roster, or maybe some players you can go out and acquire or something like that. Some of these are pretty under the radar selections. Other ones are options everybody knows are doing really, really well, but maybe there's a good chance they're not going to be doing as well in the future. We will have to wait and see exactly what each of us goes with here. I'm going to start things off with the support category. My standout performer from this stage was Bebe from the Hangzhou Spark. This man was a top 6 support in best scoring in all but 1 week this stage. He ended the stage in second and first place, respectively, over the last 2 weeks. And basically, I view Hangzhou as on the rise for fantasy purposes. And I think Bebe has to be considered a top 5 flex support going forward into future stages. I think he's going to be a player that, if the team does continue to rise, he's a very skilled player. I don't think he's necessarily top 5 in terms of skill at the position, but we're talking about fantasy purposes here, and the Hangzhou does seem to lack kind of the DPS firepower that I think is what drags down some flex supports. That he's doing a good job getting the actual stats, getting the cleanup kills, and things aren't dying to solo kills from DPS players at the moment. Maybe that changes in a future meta, but for now at least, I think Bebe is a decent option, somebody that you can invest in that I think has a chance to only grow on you a little bit. Hey Smith, who do you got?
Well, I'm going to take the other much well-known Hangzhou Spark support. That's BB. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, you had to get the troll job out there. The chat was calling you out. And so...
Nobody cares, guys. You pronounce it how you want. We'll pronounce it how I want. I gave the team. Everybody move on, okay?
We got it. All
right. We saw this
Jesus
meta
Christ.
be dominated by Bronchita for quite long enough.
Oh,
Gosh, Bronquiqui. All right.
Get over it.
I'm gonna take Dogman here.
Get over it. There's a drop.
Last draft. All right, I'm gonna take Dogman here. Look, he's taking over full time for Kodak. Dogman, here's the deal. He gets a lot of points, especially when they're playing New York. If they could just play New York every single game, he would just rake in all the points and they would get all the dubs. Unfortunately, they're not, and when they don't play New York, they tend to not play nearly as well. So it's kind of interesting. But hey, Dogman has become a startable option here. All starting flex supports do get all those points. So if he's playing all 4 maps, pretty much any flex support I'm going to take on my starting roster. So he is that player now. He's not swapping with Kodak, which deservedly, regrettably, I do have to take the L there. Sorry. But Dogman's better, so it's all good.
All right, Blevins, who do you got? Who's the last standout
I got
performer from stage 2?
I'm trying to see how I control people. I'm gonna pick No, I'm gonna pick Shu.
Shu.
Shu. I'm gonna pick Shu from the Guangzhou Charge. Really high mechanical skill player. He is on a team that tends to struggle a bit, but that's the beauty of fantasy. Is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We saw Izayaki crush all season, being on he was crushing in a stage where they went literally 0-7. Shu is no different here. And really, I mean, a lot of these like mid to bottom table teams, they're not showing us signs of, you know, going the way of Houston or Florida. Although Florida may be revitalized, who knows?
Irons
You
in
don't
the
have to
fire.
apologize to me. The team should have to apologize to me.
That's true.
You guys can analyze truths all you want.
True. Dracarys is all I have to say.
At least Houston
But
never lost back-to-back games against Atlanta.
Jon Snow? What? Oh, sorry. I was just throwing it.
All I know is that Shu is a startable option going into stage 3. You're definitely going to want to pick him up, and maybe keep an eye on. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about some other players as well, but Shu is definitely my pick here for the supports.
Moving into the DPS category, man, I love any team that can knock Blevins down a peg, and I'm gonna keep taking Atlanta Rain players here. I'm gonna go with Baby Bay. Listen, I called it when he was still on San Francisco. I thought he was one of the best DPS addition picks that this team could make. I thought he would fit in well. I thought his experience with the coaching staff would buoy him and kind of bring up his production and make him into basically the best form of Baby Bay that we've seen. And I don't know that we're quite there yet because he did look quite strong at times last season for San Francisco. But what I do know is his play time seems to be very, very secure here in the Atlanta Rain. He seems to be fitting in nicely, integrating more and more over time. He's getting a really solid amount of statistical production over the last couple of weeks. And listen, when a team goes out there, jokes and memes on Blevins aside, anytime a team goes out there and can beat a team like NYXL twice, that gives you confidence that they're at bare minimum, win, lose, draw, whatever, that they're going to be competitive. They're going to push series
They've got
late
a shot
in the map
against
fives.
anybody.
Yeah, they can show up and they can do it at any time. And I think that makes Baby Bay a really viable consideration for a DPS 2 on a roster that may be focused somewhere other than DPS in the draft or something like that, especially for a mid-season, free agency acquisition. I think Baby Bay is a phenomenal player and a great fit. Somebody that if you looked at point totals or something like that might not rise to the top, but I think his fantasy value is quickly shooting up the boards here. Hey Smith, who do you got for DPS?
I've got the Iron Fitz here. He's taken over for Fleta. He dominated on week 4 in Dallas. The guy has become a leading option, and Seoul is a good team. They're not a great team, but they are a good team, and they are top table, and that means they're going to have a lot of interesting matchups. There are only a few bottom table teams, I really think. The rest of them, I feel like if you're not in the very top or you're not in the very bottom, you're going to get a good amount of 5 mappers. And I like how Fitz has played. I don't know if we go into a 2-2-2 lock that he keeps his spot. I'm not 100% certain there. So that could be interesting going forward. But Fitz definitely overperformed in my eyes, and I look forward to seeing what he can do. Seoul did get 2 new players coming in. One of them is a DPS, I do believe. They got highly and illicit, not to be confused with highly illicit, but one of them is a DPS. Don't remember which one.
I think. We lost DB. That's not good.
Not good at all.
That's okay. The video is going to be a little bit messed
going.
up, but from podcast world, we're good. He's coming back, so we are good anyway. Yeah, the one thing that Blazing Bob actually brings up in chat, A. Smith, that I kind of wanted you to talk about with soul players is it really worth picking up soul players with their... We're not really sure. I don't think Soul is sure who they're going to run on any given week. Should we have any more
all I'm
confidence in
saying
that?
is he did really, really good in stage 2.
Yeah.
Not saying he's going to be phenomenal in stage 3, but stage 2 he did good, all right?
Would you trade him away if you had him on your roster right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
There's more. There's a couple one of these.
High trade value.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Speaking of trading away high value players right now, the DPS player I'm picking right here is gonna be Sinatra. Obviously, I mean we talked about it on the flagship show. A definite candidate, if not outright obvious pick for stage 2 MVP. I keep almost saying season.
Even mid-season.
Mid-season MVP. I mean, obviously has lived up to, the Mr. 150K, etc. But here's the thing. How much better does he ever get here is the real question. I got to say, I think he's about as good as he can be. Now, if we could guarantee that he was going to be this good for the rest of the season, yeah, keep him. He's great. The problem is that we don't know what the meta is going to be. We don't know if there's going to be a role lock. If DPS comes into the forefront, strikers got to be playing at some point, right? Who's going to be losing that spot? We're not, 100% sure yet. So, if I'm a Sinatra owner right now, he is your Japanese foil gold encrusted promo version right now. He's not getting any more rare and exclusive. Ship him away for a more consistent performer. If you can get one, I'm definitely looking to wheel and deal with Sinatra here. I think it's fine if you have to sit on him or want to keep him, but if you're ever thinking about trading Sinatra in the entire season, now is the time to do it.
Yeah, buy low, sell high. That is a tried and true fantasy cliche for a reason, because that's exactly what you're trying to do with all these players. So, just keep an eye out for opportunities. It's very, very likely we're talking about it at best split play time for both Sinatra and Rascal on the San Francisco Shock. Yep. So sell. Yes. Okay, so that leaves tanks left to talk about here real fast. I'm going to go deep for my selection here. I'm going so deep that they're below the Houston Outlaws in the standings.
Oof.
I'm going to take Sam from the Washington Justice. Listen, the team is improving. We've talked about a lot of the roster additions they've made, things they've done to level up that you can easily see. But now we're talking about a player in Sam that even when they were bad, he's been good enough from a point total perspective to be better than starting somebody like Fusions, who's a highly regarded main tank option, but the position just tends to score worse than the off-tank players. So I think you combine that with the fact that now they're only going to be better and more competitive as Sleepy gets integrated in. They pulled off the surprise win. I'm blanking on who they pulled off the win against. Boston, speaking of Fusions. Late in the stage, yes. I think we are going to see them be maybe not, flipping the script, stacking wins in stages, competing for stage playoffs, but forcing a couple extra map 5s, being more competitive in their 4-map sets. I think fantasy-wise, Sam's future is brighter now than his past, and his past is not as bad as people have really kind of pegged it to be. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not picking off-tank players I personally believe in or should be starters in the Overwatch League or anything like that. I think Sam's doing fine in that regard, but I like him more from a fantasy perspective than from a traditional just Overwatch League, do I want him on my team kind of a thing. I think there's a chance you can use him as like a throwaway part in a trade. Somebody else has him, you can just you throw in Sam or something like that, and they're not going to think twice about it, but in reality, you're gaining a viable, valuable roster piece. That's where I'm going for now. A. Smith, who do you got for tanks?
I'll take the replacement for Fisher. That's the Marv E1. Marvel? Gosh, I hate the numbers and names. Why? All right, look, he was one of the top main tanks this season, or this stage. He has been very, very productive. I would venture to say higher than some of the off tanks, not the top off tanks. Off tanks are still going to get you a lot of value, but this last stage, Marvel has gotten you a decent amount of points, and he has been a startable option, probably a tank 2. I wouldn't say a tank 1, but he's definitely surprised me, mainly because we expected Fisher to be holding down this spot, and well, as we talked about a little bit, Soul's a little flippy floppy, weird. No one knows who they're going to start, but hey, this lineup has actually worked for them pretty well. I won't say perfectly, because taking an L to Hangzhou Spark to kick yourself out of the playoffs kind of sucks. So, but hey, look, Marvel has been picked up several points. I don't know the exact point totals, mainly because I had a baby this stage. So,
Oh, excuses.
apologies.
Excuses.
I know.
So
But
many excuses. It's
I do know
ridiculous.
I do know Marvel has done really well, so I would look at him as a main tank. I don't know going forward, but it looks like Fisher is benched, and I would hope they trade him.
Maybe to Toronto Defiant, but that's just my. I mean, I really was hoping for Fate, but Bare Hands pokes me with the.
Apparently, you're getting
hot
OG.
iron. That would also be a poggers for me. Except
yeah.
I would need to really, I'd really need to show him how to eat cereal. But regardless, I'll round out the segment here. I'm gonna go with Rhea of the Hangzhou Spark. I mean, he really in these last couple of weeks has stepped up. I mean, the Spark. I knew I was gonna be doing this. The Spark have really picked up this stage. Obviously, they were in the stage playoffs. They beat London. In the stage playoffs, so they're really making a run for it. I mean, again, in the same vein as Shu, these like mid-table teams really have a lot of places to go. And like you said, A. Smith, pretty much any of these mid-table teams can go to 5 against almost anybody, except for maybe the S tier right now. So these, your Guangzhou Charges, your Chengdu Hunters, Hangzhou Sparks, your LA Gladiators, like all these teams can go to 5 against anybody. They can win, lose, otherwise against them. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for you as a fantasy owner. You just need your guy to get points. And Rhea has really been closing in even on a number 1 tank spot here in these last couple of weeks.
All right, so that wraps up kind of the standout performers. There's one more thing, and it's not in the notes, so sorry for springing it on you guys. But I do want to talk a little bit about that trade. We do have basically 3 players that have gone from out of Overwatch League into Overwatch League, and we have what was thought to be a top-tier main tank that's switched teams, right?
Mhm.
So I'm curious your guys' thought. Let's talk first about Fate. Do you guys think he's going to increase in value, decrease in value? What do you see Fate doing? Blevins, let's start with you.
Well, the LA Valiant were that weird anomaly where it didn't matter if they lost or won, you're still getting a ton of points out of them. Florida Mayhem has never been that weird anomaly. They were like, at the end of the season in season 1, some of their players could get you a like DPS 2 or a tank 2 level of points some weeks. But never at the pace that the LA Valiant have had. Now, with that being said, I do think that as a team, Fate ups the value of the Mayhem precipitously. But, we've seen changes with the Mayhem. We've thought that, there have been upgrades to the team from time to time, and none of it has stuck. So I'm waiting for – I will wait for it to be seen before I really give too much input on it. So I'm thinking, if anything, his value is going down right now.
Hey, Smith, anything to add there?
I mean, I need to see the rest of these irons in the fire, to be honest, because there has to be more trades for this to make an impact. If players like Zephyr get replaced and you see some uptick there, I think they need to add another DPS too, and I think you could have something there, and his value could increase, but it would come with more time, and I would wait to see what other trades they make, because right now the value is going down.
Yeah, all I'm going to really add to that is I don't think you should be trying to trade Fate away if you own him, because I think the immediate move to the Florida Mayhem will have kind of plummeted his perceived value down below where it actually will be. So I think he's better right now, and I don't think you're going to get a value by moving him right now. Now, if he comes out and in the first week has a huge statistical performance and a big fantasy week, maybe then that's your opportunity. So maybe look for a big week, try to move him afterwards if you don't really want him on your team as a member of the Florida Mayhem. But now is probably not the correct time to do that. Yep. Let's look at the other side of it. I think it's safe to say the Valiant are playing for the future a little bit here. Now there's going to be a competition theoretically at main tank between Kooky and Fact Fiction. We've also got some competition on the DPS side of things. How do you guys think these new additions to the LA Valiant are going to affect fantasy owners? Is there anybody you're targeting or trying to pick up? A. Smith, let's start with you this time.
I think Shax and Fact Fiction are both two players that will get starts. I don't see McGravy starting over Space, but I do think Shax could get some playtime over a player like Agilities. So that would be something I would be watching, and maybe even paired along with Agilities, depending. But Shax will be the main player I'm looking at that in this trade as, hey, this guy's going to start. Fact Fiction probably will start, but I don't know if main tanks, the value on him is going to be as high as you would want to just pick up. Does that make sense?
I agree with everything you just said to the point where I don't really need to add anything to it. Even if you don't believe in Shax as a player, these two guys didn't believe in Agilities as a player once upon a time, and I still get to make fun of them endlessly for it because I didn't even super believe in Agilities at the time. It's just a matter of he's going to get the opportunity to hit the stage, and sometimes you're wrong, and you need to accept that and plan for it in fantasy when you're making your ad drops, your roster pickups. Yep. Shax is absolutely worth a bench stash right now. So if you have somebody that's not in your regular starting rotation, maybe Shax is an upgrade, because I think he's got the potential and the ability to really pop off, at least statistically, and really perform for you. So worth owning.
I'll pick
Blevins, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll pick up any LA Valiant player on spec right now, just because of that weird anomaly. They are loss proof for fantasy points, or at least they've shown that.
Fact is more than good enough to be here. I think there's a decent chance he's okay. The reason I'm not kind of targeting him is just because he's a main tank. Yeah. But it's certainly... Listen, maybe all that team needed was new synergy on the tank line. Like, it could just be as simple as that. And Fact Fiction's good enough. Maybe they just hit the ground running. I don't know. Yeah. The pieces seem to be there for them. They always have been. At least not to be. To me, it's like the Valiant and Houston, the two green teams. They're kind of the same thing, right? Like, the rosters don't tell me bottom 2, bottom 3 team. Just the results do. So if something changes, Houston's not getting that change, at least not yet. But the Valiant are. So I think there's cause for optimism, or at least speculative investing in some of their players on your bench. I think is warranted there. So.
And major props to Bare Hands for making this trade happen, because seriously, like, he got rid of 3 players he wasn't ever going to use.
1 player.
No, I mean they were. I mean, he was never going to use all 3 of them.
You're not wrong, but this is just me referencing our flagship conversation.
Sure.
He traded away 2 players that he didn't have under contract. What kind of GM is able to trade away players he doesn't even have under contract? That's legendary stuff right there.
The best one.
That's why in Bare Hands we trust. I'll tell you that.
That's true.
Yeah. So massive props to Bare Hands.
Love it.
Yeah. Also the actual GM of Florida that I don't even know off the top of my head, because I just all credit.
He is a puppet.
All credit flow unto Bare Hands. That's my philosophy.
Bare Hands has his hand up. Oh, never mind.
The only thing I'm upset about is that
too far.
I'm only upset that Fate now isn't going to the Toronto Defiant, but I can. If we get, I'll take OG. I'll take Fissure. I'll take a lot of players.
It's funny, we caught wind that Fate was leaving the Valiant in a trade, and I sent a message to Blevins with the link to something, and I'm like, could this be Toronto? And it took 45 seconds of me uttering the words for that door to just be windmill slammed closed right in our faces. Yep. That's nope, and he's with Florida. And it's well, we're happy for Bare Hands at least. Yeah. Yeah, otherwise, all right, so that kind of wraps up the actual Fantasy Overwatch League portion of the show. if it's all you're interested in and you don't care about 90s TV shows, first of all, shame on you.
Shame.
But second of all, this is where you guys can tune out. Thank you so much for checking us out. Also, if you're only watching for the 90s TV show draft, which I expect to be more likely than people tuning out because we're about the draft, not that you could possibly hear it, but this is where you want to tune in. So let's take a little bit here and talk about, we did the draft in the past. That was top video game franchises of all time. A. Smith picked first, Blevins picked second, I picked third. A. Smith finished first, I finished second, Blevins finished third. So that's the only other draft that we've done. Now, we're changing the draft order a little bit. It rotates, right? I was third last time, so now I slide into the number one draft spot. A. Smith goes second, Blevins brings up the end. If you're unfamiliar with how these drafts work, we do draft it just like a fantasy team. So we are going to be doing the Serpentine Snake draft here. So I will be picking first. That means Blevins is third and fourth.
Slytherin draft,
and then we'll draft Harry Potter references another time, and then I will be picking sixth and seventh. So it wraps around like that. It will keep going. The number of rounds we do,
Chamber of Secrets,
depends entirely on time. Blevins, what is our current run time for the episode?
It is 26.
Okay, so we've got about a half an hour. We'll be fitting in as many rounds as we possibly can. I've personally prepared myself to go 11 rounds deep into this draft. I will crush you all. You don't stand a chance. But let's get things started here.
Not if you punt with your first pick.
That's my job, okay?
It's already on the draft board, so you already
you are wrong.
Picking. I'm decidedly not wrong. Yes! The coldest of cold takes humanly possible would be to pick any other show other than Blevins hit it.
You need to give me the link.
Oh, you said you had this one queued up.
Oh,
right.
No, I lied about that.
Okay, you lied. That's fine. All right, so this show defines me as a human being. It shaped my entire sense of humor, the way I interact with other human beings. It affected my life goals. Everything about this show was like literally transformative for me. I still get credit for quoting it and knowing things about this show at work to this day. It's beneficial in my professional life to have watched an absurd amount of Seinfeld. It is the number one sitcom of all time, regardless of era. It is arguably the number one TV show of all time, regardless of era. There was no other possible selection that could have made any sense for me to go with at the 101 here. So yeah, I will be taking Seinfeld.
That can't be right.
I really have no rebuttal to that one.
Honestly, my only rebuttal is it's going to be number 2. Like that's my seriously only rebuttal there. Did I just send this? Anyways.
Yeah, you tried to pick the same thing that I just picked.
I didn't.
Well, weird.
Interesting.
We're already disqualified.
Magic.
So A. Smith will be
Magic. Hang on.
docked his first one pick here. Where's pick one?
It keeps doing it. All right, cool. Well,
looks like you're using the phone, bud.
That is,
Hey Smith, learning how to copy paste YouTube links.
I did it on my phone. Leave me alone.
Unfortunately, you're not graded in this draft by your ability to copy paste the theme song over to Blevins so that he can play a little bit of it. But
all right,
I don't know. Tell us who you're picking.
I'm going to take the actual number one show on the planet, and that would have to hang on. I'm like slowly getting there.
This is Blevins.
It is VeggieTales. No, look. It's why won't it let me type? It's Friends. It is Friends. Right, give me a break.
I got it.
Friends is single-handedly keeping Netflix in business, to be fair. Like Friends and The Office are the only two shows people actually have Netflix for anymore. Friends has been the hit show of the country. Like, if you say pivot, literally everybody knows what you're talking about. There are shirts.
Turning 180 degrees without moving one of your
and then you do
I literally don't know what you're talking about.
I don't understand.
Get out of here. You
do not understand the pivot.
Have you never watched Friends? Then shame on you. You are a pathetic person of a human being.
I've watched it. It's a super good show. It is just budget Seinfeld.
It is not budget Seinfeld. It actually came out right around the same time as Seinfeld.
Right. And so it was never as successful, or
it was actually had like the most final episode. It had more viewers than Seinfeld ever hit on a live episode. Like pure viewership, it kicked its butt. So like, I mean, what are we talking? Eyes on the? I mean, everybody watchability, like rewatchability, Friends, 100 times out of 100 is kicking its butt. Come on,
Nope.
dude. Just
the only thing Friends has going for it is currently on Netflix, and Seinfeld isn't. That's the only thing. But you know what? Seinfeld doesn't need to be on Netflix, A. Smith, because every television show on cable replays it 3 times a day. Why? Because it's the greatest television show, not named Game of Thrones, that's ever been produced. I'm not even disparaging Friends. Friends is the clear 102 pick. You've done all you can do.
You
but
are
you're in
incorrect.
second place right
I
now
am sorry,
because
but
Friends is budget Seinfeld.
Friends is strongly a better pick. They are pure numbers wise. And literally every metric other than your own. Other than your own.
More people than you and your wife vote on these polls. So we will find out soon.
Get out of here. My child also votes.
Yeah,
he already has a Twitter.
At OwlBaby123 on Twitter. Find him. Blevins, you're up with the number 3.
Yeah, man, I feel like I don't even need you guys duked that one out pretty well for me. I don't need anything. But I will agree. Well, I don't know if I agree because there's something common about there's a common theme between your two shows. They're both great. Don't get me wrong. Love both of them. Seinfeld, all-time classic. Friends was watched by a lot of people. But here's the thing.
Super popular among 13-year-old girls in the 90s. That was great.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
We were on a break, okay?
Here's the common theme of both of yours. They ended. They stopped. They had a finale. They're done. They were decided by the network to stop, and here's where
he's not
cut
punting
above the crowd.
No, he is.
Oh, he's punting. Oh, come on, man.
Here's where I cut above the crowd. It's not close. You want to talk about defining television? You got to go with The Simpsons. Come on. It's not a punt. There's no way it's a punt. It's the easiest pick I've ever made in my entire life. This is not a golden eye again.
Yeah, that's fair.
You talk about how many adult animated. Okay, not adult. How many cartoons are there now that are whose target audience is not little children? A lot. You got Rick and Morty, you got Family Guy, you got Futurama. I can go on. BoJack Horseman. All these top shows.
South Park
should have stopped before BoJack Horseman. If you
should have.
BoJack Horseman is my favorite anime. Okay. On the real though, BoJack Horseman is actually a pretty good show. It's not from the 90s, but although the show Horsing Around, the fake TV show that BoJack Horseman starred on, was from the 90s in the fake reality of BoJack Horseman. Nonetheless, I digress. The Simpsons, come on, and let me tell you, and I'll give you this: the newer seasons of The Simpsons. I can't speak to those. I have not watched them a lot, but I even go back every once in a while and I'll watch an episode. They don't have that same charm. They don't have that same allure that they used to, but you're talking 90s Simpsons. There is nothing better than that. The writing is honestly, there might not be better writing in television than The Simpsons, especially for an animated show. A lot of the greatest writers that you see now that have their own shows that have started they all started, a lot of them started on The Simpsons. You got Conan O'Brien. You got a lot of these people that are famous in their own right now started in that writing room in The Simpsons. They were doing things that no one was doing, especially in cartoons. It's not close here. Simpsons is an easy choice.
I'm not even going to. This is, you're picking an all-time great show and you're isolating it at its peak. I think the 90s was the peak of The Simpsons.
Certainly.
So far, I'm not even going to disparage the entire first round because I think it's gone the order it should.
Yeah.
Exactly. 1, 2, 3. Probably the order.
Yeah,
it should.
Those are definitely top 3.
I probably would have picked Simpsons second, even if I went second.
I will say though, I'm glad Simpsons isn't on my team because it's not representative of like my childhood.
It is of mine.
Did not watch Simpsons.
Right. I was never big on it, but I respect where it's due.
Yeah,
Simpsons is a good pick.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, when was the last episode you watched of Simpsons? Like, to be fair, though,
not that long ago, actually. Like,
they did an episode on Buffalo like 2 weeks ago. So
they did an episode on Buffalo, and they did an episode on
so
esports. They did an episode on esports.
They
did an episode on esports. They did a
trying to stay relevant
Legends episode. Okay. Man, I don't even know where I want to go with this one.
This is where he throws, Smith.
This is where I throw.
This is it.
There's
This
so
is
many
it.
ways I can go. All right.
You posted?
So
just-
I have gotten. Oh, man. Okay. You know what? I can already feel myself throwing here. You know what? I gotta pick this one. I really do. It affected my childhood so much. It's warped me as a person. It has affected me ever since I first saw that original promo back when I was like 7 years old, and has affected me even up until as recently as this weekend when I saw the brand new movie Detective Pikachu. I'm not making the same mistake twice.
You really are.
Punching.
Give me Pokemon. There's few, and I know we're not drafting TV show theme songs, but man, there are few theme songs that are as iconic as the Pokemon theme song. It's the start of the literally most successful franchise in terms of money made of any entertainment franchise. It's there. I didn't pick it for video games. I didn't pick it first for video games. That was a mistake. I'm not making the same mistake twice. Give me Pokemon here.
Well, that's that. You can. There's not much to say about that because that show was terrible.
Quality TV show. I'm not gonna sit here and bash Pokemon.
I can't.
Their problem with the Pokemon pick is the litany of other options that were just far superior to it.
Yeah.
So many. So many more.
I
and
almost
I'm gonna
picked
kick it
this
off.
one.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick it off with
the only correct one.
the most iconic theme song of all time. I venture to say, literally, almost everybody knows this theme song. Go ahead and play
It's
it,
actually a
Blevins.
story all about how A. Smith's life got turned upside down. And Blevins, we'd like to take a minute, just sit right there to tell you how A. Smith became the prince of a town called Bel Air.
That's
Okay,
it.
that was
That's
where
exactly
you should have went.
Now I
Why
almost
wouldn't
went
you?
this. I
Why
almost did.
Why did you throw? Why do you do this, Blevins?
The Fresh Prince. Dude,
my
Will
thing.
Smith just being Will Smith, man. This kicked off Will Smith's career. Like, just his dude.
Whoa.
This-
It didn't
Okay,
kick
we're not
off
talking
his
about
career.
it. We're not talking about his rap
It
career.
didn't
Okay,
kick
We're not
off
talking
his
about that.
career. It
It
definitely
took it into it took
helped
it into
his
orbit.
career.
It took it into orbit is what it did. Okay, look, Will Smith, Uncle Phil, man, Carlton, like doing the Carlton. That is
God.
a thing, man. Doing the Carlton is a dance.
true.
Like you say,
Get sued
Dean,
over it.
you want to you
Oh, I'm
want
gonna
to
get sued? I shouldn't do that. Then.
Yeah.
you want to know who hosted the world's shortest St. Patrick's Day parade here in Hot Springs, Arkansas? Yes, that was Mr. Carlton himself. Yes, he came and hosted. Look, the guy is iconic. Dude freaking won Dancing with the Stars only because that's all he's known for being on. Dude, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, hands down. I would still watch that. I wish they would even do a remake with like Will Smith being the dad and like Jaden coming and being the son. That'd be so cool. Anyways, food for thought. But Fresh Prince, easily.
That
That
was-
Love
I
the
almost went
pick,
with that one.
but if your reasoning doesn't lose you votes, I don't have any faith in our view. Like, short parade of all time? You mentioned Dancing with the Stars?
Hey man,
Yeah,
look.
All
you
you
really-
needed to do was
you were at the
reference
one
DJ
line.
Jazzy Jeff.
You were at the
hit
1 yard
Carlton,
line
that
and you
was fine.
missed it.
Punch it in, A. Smith. Get it
You could have.
together.
You could have.
I'm sorry, I just had to-
all the
I
Dr.
had-
Phil, all the Uncle Phil jokes.
Uncle.
Belly D. Williams. I mean, come on.
Look, I just had to throw out my city. I had to rep my city. That was like the only thing we've ever.
Did you have to rep
Hot Springs
Dancing
has
with the
ever known
Stars?
for? Yeah, I didn't have to. I just the Carlton, man. I love it.
All right. Well, that brings us back to me here for my pick in round two. I will be going
Said I
back
was
to
throwing.
back.
Oh my god.
I mean, at least he didn't pick Pokemon. And the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was just sitting there waiting for him. Listen, I'm going to take with my first pick here in my back-to-backs. I've got to start, Blevins. You can go ahead. It's The Boy Meets World. This was, for me,
this is
I
throwing.
grew up on this show. I was raised on this show. I fell in love with Topanga. Who didn't have a crush on Topanga? Who wasn't spending their whole lives in search of their very own Topanga?
I can
Who
think
didn't
of literally
identify?
half of the people in the world that weren't.
It's fine.
The
Half
people that weren't born yet?
all the time. No, this show literally like helped raise me. This screams 90s television. I would be just viscerally upset if I left this draft without the Boy Meets World being on my team. So I'm going to be just snap picking it right here. Go ahead.
That was a terrible pick.
That was actually my wife's like favorite show. I like bought her like season 4.
Let's let Blevins
bought
dig his
season
own grave.
4.
Let's
Keep
let
going.
Blevins dig his grave. Come on, Blevins.
I got
Why
nothing
is
more.
it
That
so bad?
it's
Just
a
keep
bad
it
show.
on.
Great. You picked a like mediocre 90s TV show. Okay, cool.
Just
I mean, we're not picking Pokemon.
Yeah, you picked Pokemon. Just a solid like 6th round selection there from Blevins. Going
Hey, I'll take a
the
6th
top
round
of the
over
second.
an honorable mention in the award show.
Over better than The Simpsons. I'm just gonna say it would have been a better choice than even The Simpsons. Though The Simpsons is
You
fine.
think Boy
It
Meets
was a fine
World is a better
Crushes
pick than The Simpsons?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Boy Meets World were 3 and 4 in that order, and don't add.
I actually can't get behind that.
That's a woof if I've ever heard.
I mean,
one.
listen, The Simpsons wasn't for me. I respect where it's due.
Yeah.
Boy Meets
Right,
World,
respect where it's due because it's earned it.
Meets
Boy
World
Meets World
raised a
deserves
generation.
no respect.
Boy Meets World raised an entire
Oh,
generation of people. And Blevins, we can't even talk about TV anymore because
That's a
is just
woof.
literally hating Boy Meets World is the literal worst take humanly possible that I've ever heard. Now, I'm going to go with my next pick here, okay? And I'm going to go off of my own personal list and just talk about shows that I missed this one, okay? But respect where it's due. Again, like some of the other picks here, not Pokemon, but some of the other picks here, you've got to respect it, even if it wasn't your personal
Gotta remember
favorite.
that Boy Meets World is on this list this high. I've got a chance here, boys.
You have no chance whatsoever. You're literally, it's remarkable to me how you just keep digging, right? Like you can't recognize that
I
this
have
is
faith
absolutely. And what in
in the viewers.
And people at _ Blevins. What is your Twitter tag now?
That's what it is.
At _ Blevins. He hates Boy Meets World.
Yes.
There's no Topanga in this man's life.
Nope.
Tell Maddie that she's not your Topanga, and you will be.
Do it.
I don't even know what that means. Is that like a
Do it.
like a type of pudding?
Just tell her.
Topanga!
It's not tapioca.
That was a deep cut
but-
Boy Meets World reference. You're all welcome, all the fans, since that's 99%
All the
of our
fan
audience.
that's on the show, I guess.
99% of the entire world was a fan of that show. It's
Woof.
still on my computer. I'm going to start rewatching it tonight while I just crush you in Smash Brothers. But yeah,
The first season was not that great.
for my
To be fair,
third
neither was
selection,
the second or third.
it
season. I
depended.
would be surprised if there was more than that.
Boy Meets World, I think, depended what you thought of each individual season. Depended on like I grew up with it, right? So when season 1 came out, like I was like Corey's age, and so
you're
I like
old, is what you're saying. Okay.
I'm super old. I aged with the show, and I think anybody that did that, it would be absolutely at the absolute top of
Why
their
do you think
list.
I like The Simpsons so much? When I first saw it, I was 6 years. No.
So you're 84 years old
No,
now?
I was gonna say
You aged
I
with
was
The
10 years
Simpsons,
old
you're
when I saw
literally
Bart
dead
Simpson,
now?
and I'm still 10 years old because so is Bart Simpson.
Listen, at least Boy Meets World didn't jump the shark
Miracle.
and then keep going for 15 more years. is all
Right,
I'll
because
say.
it was never even surfing in the first place. It never even
All right.
got to the beach.
As much as I want Blevins to just keep burying himself, I'm gonna draw a line here, and we'll stop talking about round 2 now and move on to round 3. Blevins, you can play the music. I don't have much to say in support of this show individually, personally. Like I said, I haven't watched it, but even with how old it is, The Sopranos remains on my to-watch list. It's not one I've seen yet. It's just it's paved the way for modern television as we know it now. And I'm looking at you, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones does not exist without The Sopranos breaking HBO into the forefront of late night adult, primetime television. And I think we would be remiss if it wasn't very, very seriously thought of as one of the top TV shows of the era. Again, not one I've seen personally, but this is just you just know enough about it, right? It was the one that started the whole surprise you in a way that you didn't know you could be surprised by television. Like the things that we love about Game of Thrones now and the television, The Walking Dead, the serious drama TV that we have now, that started in the 90s era, and a big part of that, possibly the biggest part of that, was The Sopranos. So I'm going to be taking it here, and I'm going to just rely on the fan base and the fans of this show to carry it, because I know how often it gets brought up, greatest of all time conversations, let alone greatest of the genre. So yeah, I will be taking The Sopranos.
Yeah, I also never saw that show, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. So definitely
haven't seen it.
Stronger pick than Boy Meets World.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Stronger pick than what's about to come off the board right now. I'll tell you that right now.
No, I am gonna look right now. Go ahead and play this, because everybody knows this. Everywhere you look, man. Everywhere you look. Look, it's Full House.
Solid fun. I like the fun.
Hey, look. Full House is a freaking amazing show. The most family-friendly, fun TV show of that generation. I would venture to say, like, this is the show that parents sit down and watch with their kids that you can, like, feel good about. It was so good, it demanded a reboot. Now, the reboot was trash, but we're not going to talk about that, okay? Look, Uncle Jesse, come on, man. Have mercy.
Wait, are you saying that you had a crush on Uncle Jesse? Is that what you're alluding to here?
Well,
no.
First of all,
what girl didn't? Like seriously. I mean, golly, this show was just incredible. Like, literally everything about it is just the most family-friendly, fun show of that generation. You can ask any. I can almost guarantee you any person has ever seen an episode of this show. Like, literally everybody in the United States has probably seen an episode of this show, at least one episode, because it is that popular. It is that popular.
All I'll say is, at least the characters in Boy Meets World have a real personality and aren't just like a poster. Like, the Full House like ruined television. Like, they made it so like, oh, we don't need to have real compelling characters. We can just have a caricature of what a human would look like. We don't need a personality. We just got a one-liner, and we've got a poster of what a person would look like. No, man. You know what? I'm growing back on Boy Meets World, even though I hated that show growing up. I'm at least, you know what? I'm retroactively going back and giving respect to Boy Meets World after Full House. I was hoping that we could go this whole thing without seeing Full House, because you know what? Full House just made it so that people don't need to try on TV. All these shows that we see now, Big Bang Theory, all these like, here's where you should laugh type with there's no thought put into the writing whatsoever. It's very clear. Oh, here's a heavy-handed moral we're going to tell these people to listen to this one, and they're gonna learn it in a series of things that could never happen to a real person. But you know what? You learned a lesson at the end of this. I don't want to see that while I'm watching TV. I don't want to learn. I don't want to watch Aesop's fables while I'm watching TV. I want to be entertained. There's nothing entertaining about Full House. It tells you when to laugh. You don't think, your brain shuts off, and you just like are drooling a puddle of garbage that is Full House.
I'll say this about Full House. I had no problems with it when it was out. It didn't stand the test of time, even remotely. I went 33 TV shows deep in my research. Full House, not on my list. Again, I watched it when it came out. I have no problems with it. But the best thing I can say about Full House is, did you see Stephanie in that reboot? Damn! I mean, that's as far as I can go. That's as far as I can go for you, A. Smith.
I mean, you're not wrong on the last part, because... Hey, I'm married, but you know.
I was gonna say, we're just gonna see your wife in the background just smack you in the back of the head.
Anyways, nah, man, that show was my childhood. Granted, I was 7 when the 90s stopped, so to be fair, that's
probably
what my childhood was.
All you were allowed to watch.
Incredible. No, dude. If we get into some other shows that I was, if we're picking shows I actually watched in the 90s, I got some.
Blevins, let's wrap up round 3 here.
Yeah. Oh man, I did not.
Just try to keep it together, buddy. Just try to hold it together.
I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna get
Full House is probably gonna bear better than Pokemon will in this particular thing, even though I'm kind of with you on it.
100%.
Well, I'm gonna go the opposite here. We're gonna take a big brand, high budget sitcom here, that instead of just boring their audience to sleep with with random platitudes. We took some characters that actually had a little bit of depth and a little bit, and really had some substance to them.
I'm nervous for you.
I'm very nervous.
I don't know where he's going here.
This is not going to be a popular vote. That's fine. But I'm going with the spin-off of the famous show Cheers. That's going to be Frasier.
Okay.
Give me Frasier.
Oh no.
Okay.
Fine.
Frasier is
Pick too high. But
one
okay.
of those
Yeah.
one of those shows that, you know, like you said, Friends is rewatchable. Frasier, perfectly rewatchable. It's not as, you know what? It's not as famous as those shows. I don't care. It's better than those shows. I'll say it right here. And if you don't think that, you probably haven't watched the show, or you haven't watched it when you're old enough to get the jokes, because those, like, the writing on Frasier is on point. It still has a little bit of that. It tells you when to laugh and you know when to laugh, but it's got, you know what, the characters, they create these scenes that are really, they're more theatrical than you would expect from a sitcom. I'm giving it to Frasier. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Maybe it's picked a little bit too high, but you know what? Watch it. If this gets one person to pick up Frasier and watch it, it's going to be worth it in my book.
It's a good show, but canned laughter's okay in your show, but not my show. That's cool.
No, yeah. Well,
That's how that
did
works.
you not hear the
It's
explanation of why the canned laughter was okay? Because the writing was good. In Full House, the writing is not good.
Frasier is the anti-Full House, so I love that it went immediately after Full. It was like a rage response pick. Like, it was very reactionary, in my opinion. Full House, you're right, Blevins. It was completely mindless. You could have shut your brain off, watched the show, and gotten all the takeaways you were supposed to get. Frasier smartened up television. It told TV producers and writers that it was okay to use your brain and to represent and to talk about, and that people could love intelligent characters that used big words and weren't idiots and didn't, like you said, that weren't just canned blather responses and cookie cutter cutouts. And Frasier did that to me. It was a great show. It was one I found myself rewatching and watching more than I really, in my head, like if you would have asked me what my top 5 favorite TV shows in the 90s were, Frasier wouldn't come up, but it would be one that I'd probably think about in the first 5 that would come to mind, because it really was transcendent for the era. It was doing something nobody else was. It was a very successful spin-off, which is far from a guarantee. Like, you very rarely get to spin off as successfully as Frasier did. I really like that. Niles, Frasier, all that cast, like everybody there, I thought did a great job. It was a really solid TV show. I don't hate that pick at all.
I enjoy the
but
show,
I don't hate it. Yeah.
but it's way too early.
Well, here's the problem, though. We're at 52 right now, and we're going into round number 4. Is this the last official round for the tallying of votes? Let's do 5.
Let's do 5 rounds.
Okay, we'll do 5.
It's got to be
We're
even. So
still. Oh yeah, it does. All right, we're gonna go 6 for the fans. We're gonna
go
go
6.
fans.
Okay,
For the fans.
That affects my pick. Possibly.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, there's way too many left I want to pick. Like, I'll be furious if we stop at 4.
Man, oh man, I put way too many cartoons on this list. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go.
Freakazoid, do it, Freakazoid. You know you want to.
Holding out on Freakazoid.
Stop reading the bottom of his list.
Shut up. I'm gonna go with a different cartoon show here that really is, again, very formative to a lot of other cartoons that came up. It's a wacky one. It's definitely a niche pick. I don't even care if I get crap for this one. I'm going with the Ren and Stimpy show. There are very few shows that take the stance that Ren and Stimpy did. You know what? I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the looks. I'm fine with it. There aren't very many avant-garde cartoons that really took those stances. You know, I don't care. I'm fine with
Blevins, you just feel free to cheat this draft because you need it. So
I'm gonna get.
Take like Scrubs or something. Come on, man. It's 2000s, but we'll allow it for this one.
I don't like Scrubs. I'm
he doesn't like Boy Meets
We
World
about to
either.
fight. We about to
Why are we
fight.
surprised?
We
He
about
doesn't
to
like Boy
fight.
Meets World either.
No, I have an active disdain for Boy Meets World. Scrubs, I'm just apathetic about.
Okay, well, show's about
Give me
your
Ren and
life.
Stimpy. I ain't even mad.
Get out of here with this Ren and Stimpy crap. All right, I'm gonna pick.
No, hold on. I'm not
Go
done
ahead.
disparaging Blevins for picking
Keep
Ren.
going. Keep going.
What did he just hate on Full House for? The literally remove your brain from your skull, set it down, and don't do it, and don't even
Yeah,
worry.
they
about
literally
moving
removed
an
the brain.
entire-
That's
Yeah, that was literally something they did in the damn show.
That was a
Blevins.
joke.
Like,
It's
they
clever.
literally
Watch
was
it.
one
The
of their
actual
jokes.
show.
It just literally the worst. It was at times
Terrible.
nausea-inducing. It was at best. It flashed with like mildly funny material. Honest to God, if I'm ranking top 10 worst TV shows of all time, Ren and
now who's
Stimpy
digging their
is
grave?
super high on that list. If you like it, fine, but top of all time and under any,
We'll see how it plays out.
oh
We'll see how it plays out.
yeah, we will, Blevins. Yikes! All right, Ace,
That's a big yikes. I'm gonna change my pick. I almost picked one, but I know it's gonna be there in round 5.
You need to send in the theme before you. Pick it,
I'm
so you gotta
about
buy
to
time.
do it. All right, I'm gonna take another fun family show. Play it, man. Family Matters, man. With Urkel.
Oh, I didn't even know what that show was called.
Urkel, literally, like that guy carried the show.
Did.
Carried the show, and hey, you know what? If it's just him, I'm okay with it because that show was stinking hilarious. Urkel, the character, was just so funny. Like the nerdy, weird person that he was just iconic for the 90s. He himself is a 90s icon. Now he glowed up, if you know what I'm saying, because if you've ever seen like stuff now, he doesn't even look like remotely what he looks like now. But dude, that show was just incredible. Urkel alone carries that show and deserves to be in round 4.
Listen, it's a rare condition in this day and age to see any good picks on the draft board here. I threw in a little bit of the theme song lyrics there into that, in case anybody didn't pick up on it. No, this was a quality show. Your assessment that Urkel carried it is absolutely 100% correct.
Also, the
I really
take ever, but okay.
What, did he carry it?
Yeah.
I mean,
What do you mean? Who did? Name 2 other characters.
No. I'm saying it's the coldest take ever.
Oh, like as in it's
It's not a hot take at all.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
overwhelmingly obvious.
I do think Carl Winslow is being a little bit underrepresented here as well. I thought he was another really, really good character.
Are you saying underrepresented because he's black? Because I mean, I don't know what you're going with this.
No, because
Oh,
the
sorry, no.
entire cast of that show was black, so they were.
I know. I was pulling a card to see if I could get any votes. It didn't happen.
I don't think
It sounded better coming out.
Man,
of my mouth.
you know what? All I'll say
Probably
is
your head.
at least I wasn't racist on the show. Just remember that when you're voting, Chet. At least I wasn't actively racist on the show.
I don't know that he was actively racist. It might have been passive.
Chat,
I
you
was
heard
being
him.
the opposite. I
Chat,
was
you
being
heard him.
anti.
Chet,
I was actually
he's
being
digging his
offended
grave.
for other
This is
people.
great. My Ren and
Get him.
Stimpy pick's not looking so bad here.
No, it's still terrible. It's still
So bad.
It's still hands down the worst pick on the board.
Ren and Stimpy, yeah, get out of here.
And you own the 2 worst picks on the board.
Blaming Kyle.
Oh,
But yeah, no, I listen. Family Matters was great. It's definitely on my list. It's not one that like stuck with me over the years. There's other ones that I think stuck with me longer. But in the moment, I was definitely really, really into Family Matters. So I don't hate that pick at all. Blevins, anything to add?
No, Family Matters is a perfectly respectable pick. I didn't really watch it that much, but from what I know, it's a good show.
Also, I am going with the F theme. If you haven't noticed, look at my picks.
Oh, they
start with
are
Fs.
all Fs.
And I hate drafted Frazier from you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hate draft another F pick right here, right
Go
now,
for it.
because there's no way it could possibly wheel. Listen, this one's a little bit under the radar for people that are wrong, okay? But there is no show.
Okay.
It's not under the radar because you don't like it. It's under the radar because it was from like January 30 or December 30th, 1999.
It got exactly 1 season, which I've got to say is criminal. But what if I told you that there was a show out there in the 90s that had James Franco, Seth Rogen, Jason Segel, Martin Starr, Sam Levine, and even Shia LaBeouf was on.
Scrubs?
Shia LaBeouf is in that show?
He had a minor role in it.
So is Guilfoyle from.
That is Martin Starr.
Oh, that's Martin Starr. Okay.
Yep. So I named him. Listen, Freaks and Geeks. If you've never seen it, you're welcome. If you haven't heard of it, you are welcome, especially if you grew up in the late 80s, in the early 90s, even the late 90s. You can probably get some pretty serious appreciation for what this show was, what it represented. It was it's got a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a 9 out of 10 critically acclaimed television show. For the life of me, I will never understand why it only got one season. It makes literally no sense. This show has an extreme cult following to this day, and anybody with anything bad to say about this show, I would literally probably get heated enough to want to fight them. So yeah, I will be taking Freaks and Geeks. Now is the time, gentlemen, if you have any terrible takes about Freaks and Geeks.
The only negative
Is
take...
it 90s? That's my take.
That's my only take, is that it's like
one episode?
Okay, so here's what I'll say. It technically started in the 90s.
Correct.
But it doesn't feel like a 90s show. But the show in and of
doesn't.
itself is an amazing show.
It's just
that's all I'll
so
say.
short.
It had one season, and that season started in the 90s.
You're not
You're
wrong.
not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm not saying you're not
technically.
technically
wrong.
correct. All I'm saying is that it doesn't feel as much like a 90s show.
If it had 2 seasons, I would
It
really
couldn't-
fault you. But
It's
it
literally
only had
like
one
set
season.
in the 90s. The 90s era is what it's talking about. It's what it's doing. It
Isn't it the 80s?
encapsulates the 90s
Isn't it the
better
80s?
than any show. It could be. It could be. Late
I think it
80s,
takes
early
place in
90s,
the
to be
80s.
honest. It's in that whole
If I remember
growing up
correctly.
circa 1980. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're
it's
not
from the
wrong
80s.
there. So it even goes back. Like, how can this feel like a 2000s show if it started in the 90s and is set in mid to late 80s? This is that 80s show.
Yeah.
This is what that 80s
You're
show
not
should have
wrong.
been instead of doing it. This is, to me, no show encapsulates the 90s to me better than Freaks and Geeks. There was just
No, I
a
wouldn't
few
say
that
that.
were actually better.
It's a fantastic show. I've got no qualms there.
All right, now for one Blevins gonna hate because he's too young, okay? And A. Smith, you might not have heard of this one in particular, and I'm skipping over some that are potentially bigger fan gets, whatever. This show was my favorite, and I don't even have like a solid
Oh my God, if
reason
you take
why.
mine, I'm gonna be so mad.
Okay. All right.
I'll give you a minute,
All
Blevins, to play that one.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Who didn't have a crush on Winnie? I'm going with the Wonder Years, guys. The Wonder Years was it was like that crossover between like believable, relatable television, but it also stayed family friendly, right? Like you could sit down, you could watch this show with your kids or with your parents or whatever it was. And it had something for everybody. It really did a great job of, I think, bringing families together. This is another one that was very highly thought of, critically acclaimed kind of a thing. We're talking like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 in most kind of polls, things like that. Listen, it was never super exciting. It was never a lot of different things, but what it was is it was always relatable. You always cared about the the characters, what was going on with them. But yeah, listen, I mean, Winnie Cooper. That's if that doesn't say it on its own. But obviously, Fred Savage. I think this really launched his career as well. Put him on the map. David Schwimmer was in this show. Yeah. He's at least listed in the cast. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I remember his character or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you could relate to this, even if the dad wasn't your dad, right? Like you had an uncle that was just like the dad or something like that. Like this was, to me, one of the most relatable television shows that I've ever seen. And much like Topanga, I still have a crush on Winnie to this day. So
Hey,
take any shots you guys want.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I am too young to have ever watched or appreciated this show.
I actually did watch it. Now I didn't watch it when it was airing because I'm pretty sure it stopped airing after I was born or before I was born. So, but I did watch some of it. It's actually a very wholesome, family friendly show. Nice. But it didn't. I mean, maybe my dad loved it, but I mean that's all I'm gonna say about that. I mean, it was okay. It was.
Well,
it was.
judging
It
by
was
the year
okay.
you were born, if I'd made some bad life choices, I would be old enough to be your father, so that makes sense.
Woof.
Would have to be some really bad life choices. But
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, I don't know how
it's
much.
still
really young.
I don't know. Choices would have been the right.
It's
one.
closer to correct than it is incorrect, I think, is the right way to do it.
Okay, there you go.
Blevins, anything to add before we go to Ace?
No, I literally know almost nothing about the show other than Fred Savage is beloved because of it, and I like Fred Savage, so it stands to reason that this was an all right pick.
Yeah,
At least.
this is like a nobody hates it, and like
Decent
a
pick,
bunch of people love it. Show to me. But A Smith, what do you got for round
All right.
5?
Look here, man. I am picking a show that everybody loves, and it's a game show here where the points don't matter. Everything's made up because Whose Line Is It Anyway was an amazing, incredible show, man. That show, people go back and watch clips of that to this day. I still go back and watch clips of this because that show is hilarious. The songs, incredible, just holds up, man. The fun, I mean, come on. The Irish drinking song, come on, man. Everybody loves this show. Like, literally everybody. I had to slide it in there. I knew it was still going to be there in the later because people don't think of it as a 90s show, but it started in the 90s. Yes, it started in England before, but hey, America did it better. I'm going to say it. America did it better. And it was just funny show, man. Like, this is what I watched when I was like not allowed to watch, but I still watched it in nighttime. You know, when your parents like, yeah, you know what, you watch this show because it's freaking hilarious. And even as a 7-year-old, I was laughing my butt off.
Your parents didn't want you to watch it, not because it was inappropriate, but because they didn't want their child getting into improv theater.
Actually, you were completely accurate there.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I really like Whose Line Is It Anyways.
Who doesn't?
Here's the thing.
Who doesn't?
Here's the thing about improv. There's a fine line. Improv is exactly binary. It is either unwatchably bad if the performers aren't good, or it's some of the funniest stuff you can ever experience if the performers are great, which they are on Whose Line.
And these guys were, so good.
Yep.
That was going to be my take, is you got to take the good and the bad together, and there are some moments that aren't great, but that's just the nature of improv. But you do have to recognize very possibly the funniest moment of television I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm blanking on the name of Richard Simmons. Richard Simmons on that show.
Oh God!
Yes.
1,000%.
Yes.
The funniest
So good.
thing I've ever
God.
in my life seen was absolutely Richard Simmons being a prop on that show.
Just moving him around and can't even.
Hysterical.
So good.
I can't hate on it, but I will say we're gonna need to complete. If this show feels 90s and Freaks and Geeks doesn't, I quit. You guys,
The show started in like 90.
I'm not
you're
gonna
right.
lie. I do feel the same way about this as I do with Freaks and Geeks. I don't feel it as a 90s show, but it does fit the criteria and it is a good show.
Right, but I'm not admonishing it for that because I was in favor of like, listen, if one episode aired in the 90s,
I think just for the criteria, it's fine. It's just
Right.
I need to air the fact that it doesn't feel like a 90s show, but it's a great show.
But it is, and it's a great pickup because it
Technically.
wasn't on my list because it didn't feel it. Like I just didn't feel that when I thought about 90s TV. But great addition, and for what it's worth, I think the Richard Simmons moment is actually in the 90s. So, Blevins, you've got back-to-backs. Your final two picks.
Final two picks. Okay, so I'm gonna pick one that is not my personal favorite show, but I do think it is a good show that a lot of people. It's heavily referenced. It's been somewhat referenced already on this episode. A lot of people love it, and you know what? At the end of the day, what are we doing here? We're just hanging out down the street. Same old thing we did last week. That's what podcasting is. It's that 70s show. It's crazy to think how long ago that show came out, and that like if we were doing it today, it'd be like that 2000s show, which is crazy for me to think. But yeah, I mean, it's got that sitcom. It's got that like structure of a sitcom, but it's just done in such an interesting way that it really brought something new to the table. It really kind of made a little more edgy, not necessarily, because it's not inappropriate necessarily, but a little, they go into different topics, like more, adult topics than a lot of these sitcoms would go into. You really felt like these characters were more real than I don't know, the Full House androids that they had on, but it was still
Bob Saget was
hilarious.
amazing. Get out of here.
Bob Saget is amazing as a comedian. He was not amazing as Danny Tanner on Full House. Let's get it straight.
He is Danny Tanner. What are you talking about?
You've never seen his stand-up, have you? You're gonna lose your mind when you watch
Yeah,
how raunchy that man is.
I don't think
You
Bob
are making the
Saget
wrong
is
argument.
remotely the human being you think he is.
Oh no, I know. I'm just saying, like, I
okay.
just associate, like,
Oh,
see him
okay.
as Bob Saget.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just Google
The
Bob
name,
Saget and the
name.
Aristocrats, and you'll
Yeah,
never
no.
be the same again.
The Aristocrats is one of my favorite routines, by the way. But yeah, give me that 70s show. I think it's a nice late round pickup.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I'm just glad that we can now completely throw out the doesn't have a 90s feel to it, because if you're picking
that one doesn't,
70s
no.
show,
You know what? We each
which,
got one,
like,
okay?
was like 70% aired in the 2000s.
I had to
and
double check to
literally
make sure that
back into the 70s for the setting.
you're 100% correct.
This to me, I wouldn't have picked it. Now, this is one of my favorite shows. I wouldn't have picked it just because it's completely unrepresentative of 90s television to me.
You're not wrong.
It qualifies everything. I love this show. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I wasn't on my list solely because it's so squarely feels either older or newer, depending on how you want to look at it.
Very.
But in part because they did such a great job with it, to be fair. So
You're not wrong.
all right, so you're up again.
Okay,
Lotus.
I got my very last pick here, and this one might actually be, in terms of do I have it set up? Oh my god, did I not? Oh yeah, I did. Okay. In terms of shows that I've watched where I have laughed harder than I have ever laughed in my entire life, this might be the funniest show I've ever watched, and a lot of people agree with me here. It's not a popular pick. It's certainly, a lot of people I talk to don't even know what the show is. And I don't care, because you need to watch this show. It is from a not so distant future from wow, I forgot what the theme is, but it's playing right now. It's Mystery Science Theater 3000. We watch old movies.
Punting.
Some of the funniest writing ever happens on this, and we make fun of old movies. It's great. I don't care. You can think it's punting. If you don't think that Mystery Science Theater is great, I know you've never watched it.
If I'm remembering the interview correctly, I think you've successfully gotten Doa's vote,
Probably.
but I don't think you've probably earned anybody else that could possibly listen to this show's vote. under
Here's
any
my
circumstances
thing.
with that one.
If you don't, here's my opinion. If you don't think that Mystery Science Theater 3000 is the funniest thing you've ever watched, it just shows me that you've probably never seen it. That's
You're
what
not
I'll say.
wrong there. I've definitely not
Right.
seen
Never
it.
seen it.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
even
no,
remotely
and
on
this
my
is
radar.
exactly what I expected, and I'm fine with it. That's why I saved it for my last pick, and I'm
It's the right
perfectly
place.
fine.
It's the right place to take it if you want it. I'm not going to hate on it.
I needed
'cause
to
I
have
haven't
it.
seen but-
This is, if anything, I'm going to get some fringe votes. There's going to be people who don't agree with the rest of my draft that agree with just this, and I'm fine with that. It's the funniest show ever. Seriously, just watch it, because it's the funniest thing. Don't care about the little skits in between the other. Just watch it. They watch old movies, and the commentary on those movies is the funniest stuff you will ever see. They even do sometimes in special theaters. They do live ones where they're recording in a theater live. You can watch it in a theater like across the country, and you can watch them doing it live. It's amazing. I still go to those from time to time. Check out Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that's going to be my final pick here.
All right. Hey,
Well-
Smith, wrap up your draft with your.
Look, I am gonna take the show that I watched that got me hooked on Marvel, and I can't help it. This is a show that I love. The 90s animated Spider-Man series seriously was the best Spider-Man series of all time. Probably the best superhero series. You have a debate between the X-Men series and Batman the Animated Series all during that time, but the X-Men and the Spider-Man were literally a shared universe. The only time we've ever seen that, and it's just so good. That show, I could not help. My child is going to grow up watching that because the show is so good. Like, it's single-handedly, I would say, the best superhero TV show, and it is not even. It's so just for anything in this generation or the 2000s, it just kicks out of the park. I mean, just not even close. This show, for anybody that grew up in the 90s and you were watching this show, this was the jam. On Fox and dude, waking up early at Fox, it was just incredible. This show, I hung on every episode. This is a pick with my heart.
Early to watch superhero crap. I don't want to do.
Waking up on Saturday mornings. Cartoons on Saturday mornings. Saturday morning.
No, I slept in on Saturday because football was on Sunday, and athletes are the real superheroes, at least in my head.
I was also 5.
Listen. I know this one's critically acclaimed. I was never a superhero guy, so I'm gonna let Blevins poke holes in it if he wants to.
Well,
just was never for me.
I really wanted to, from a strategic standpoint, poke holes in it, but this is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I also literally had probably hundreds of dollars of the toys from that cartoon show. No, this one opened it for me. This was like this and like the original Batman, not the original Batman movies, but the 90s Batman movies were like, this is why I like superheroes at all.
Like the Michael Keaton
show. Yeah. Even though those movies aren't that good, looking back, they're not. This, and the only reason it is a debate because the big three you said, the Batman animated series was amazing, the X-Men animated series was amazing and has one of the most iconic theme songs as well, but
considered playing.
I think most people would probably pick the X-Men one, but if I'm going for my personal pick, it's going to be the Spider-Man one.
I had so many action figures of the Spider-Man series, like
a lot,
an insane amount. Like you don't even know. It was crazy. It was so much.
Spider-Man to this day is probably my favorite Marvel superhero besides
From what I remember of the three of them, Batman was the best.
Batman was really good.
They were all three really, really good. Like they were phenomenal. Like
that's what I hear. I remember watching the Batman a little bit. X-Men, I have no recollection of whatsoever. I would have to take your word for it. It existed. And then Spider-Man, I remember, but I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
Man. All right. So I got the final pick. So now I can talk about things that I'm not taking here because there's no more rounds to go with, gentlemen. I'm not going to take it, but all these terrible picks you guys have, ER is still on the board.
ER is still on the board. It was on my list.
If you wanted a fan vote,
I didn't even know that there was a.
Historically,
I've heard of it before, but
listen, Scrubs wouldn't exist without ER. There is so many medical drama as a whole would have just never existed if it wasn't for ER.
It wasn't even on my radar. But not because
I'm
it's
not going
bad
to take it. I'm going to trust that remarking on it here and giving it the respect that it deserves, which I do think ER deserves to be on this list, and I feel like it should be. But since you guys have thrown away your arguments that made me think this is Blevins, I told you I had a Hail Mary last pick, one that you guys weren't ever going to consider taking.
Hold on. Wait. Can I guess what it is? Because I had a secret pick that I didn't decide to use.
You can absolutely guess it, and then
I'll just tell you what my secret pick was going to be, but I didn't use. I was going to pick Jeopardy.
No, you were wrong. Okay, so you can go ahead and cue my music. Okay. I am taking one of the best television shows of all time that barely qualifies as a 90s television show because about 6 or so episodes of the first season is all that actually aired in the 90s, but I would stack up those 6 episodes against half of the picks that were made in this as far as quality of television goes. Aaron Sorkin is an absolute just wizard with words. He's a brilliant writer, and honestly, he set this show, he didn't finish this show out, but he set it up through the first 4 seasons, I want to say, to be one of the greatest shows of all time. Yeah, The West Wing is one of my favorite shows. It made me consider going into politics for a brief period of time because of how well and how just beautifully portrayed that entire show was. It is a show that to this day there is currently a West Wing weekly podcast out there that Icarium, of all people, turned me on to, where one of the actors that joined the show very late, and it's still actively running now, they go episode by episode through it, watch it, talk about the episode as a whole. They bring on some of the actors that were in it, and also the actor in the show has a lot of behind the scenes kind of ability to provide insight and very cool things. To this day, you'll get people that were born, like, there's a decent chance A. Smith's child falls in love with the West Wing at some point in its life, because that's how much it stood the test of time. It's a little bit of a cult classic kind of a show, but to me, the West Wing is one of the best drama series that's ever been released. I absolutely love this show. I used to think of it as kind of like a guilty pleasure kind of a show. And like, I didn't talk because I didn't think it was cool to be like into politics or whatever like that. And then I just found out, it's just the adults. The entire adult world was enamored and fell in love with that show. It won so many awards for how beautifully and well it was written and acted. And I think the casting was probably the most brilliant thing about this entire show, because you've got actors that, to me, I mean, some of them were like stage actors that would be on Broadway and things like that got cast into this TV show because they fit the role so well. But Janelle Maloney, you've got Richard Schiff, you've got Brad Whitford, never really got their feet under them again after this show, because they did such a brilliant job with this actual show itself. To me, if it even remotely qualifies and I'm able to pick it, I have to windmill slam the West Wing here. I literally rewatch this show on a regular basis. It's up there with Seinfeld and Boy Meets World and literally Freaks and Geeks. These are shows that I binge watch still to this day. Almost my entire list is things that I would be ecstatic to turn on and watch right now. And the West Wing is definitely one of them. So, gentlemen, I'm going to give my team here, and then we'll go down the list, remind everybody what our rosters are. I have Seinfeld, Boy Meets World, The Sopranos, Freaks and Geeks, The Wonder Years, and The West Wing. A. Smith, tell everybody what second place is going to be.
Well, second place was your list, so my list is going to be first, and that is Friends, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Full House, Family Matters, Whose Line Is It Anyway, and Spider-Man the Animated Series. Yeah, that's a slam dunk.
That is a solid second place team. Blevins,
Solid
who's going to be
slam dunk
rounding
for
out the caboose?
Well, The Simpsons. So if anyone watches any cartoons today, they have to pick this one. Just putting that out. Pokemon. If you've played any Pokemon game, you got to pick this one. This is all started here. Frasier. If you have an IQ over 60, you got to pick this. Ren and Stimpy will pass.
None of our listeners.
That 70s show. If any of your parents were alive in the 70s, you got to pick this one. And MST 3K. If you like to laugh, just watch it. I don't even care if you pick it. Just watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and let me know what you think. I don't even care if you pick this one.
All right, that can be your consolation prize. Is maybe somebody will watch Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I might actually watch it just because
you should
out there.
You should.
So I mentioned one show that didn't get taken here. I'm going to go down a list of some other shows that were on my list here. Let's just complete the tour of nostalgia before we wrap things up. I mentioned ER. South Park was not taken. Ren and Stimpy was taken. South Park was not.
South Park
was
feel like
an exact.
It didn't feel.
I could.
It lacks the feel, but we've thrown that out the door completely. We've got that is gone. So
I should have picked South Park because I just watched the Book of Mormon on the theater show, and it was great.
We've got Home Improvement.
Good one.
Saved by the Bell.
I hate that show. Nope. I hate
The
that
acting
show
is terrible,
more than
but-
I hate that show more than
Go
Boy
watch
Meets
the
World.
scene where Jesse gets addicted to pain pills and tell. All right, no, you're right. That was terrible acting.
I was like,
gonna
to be
say,
fair, the acting was horrible, but the show itself lives on.
All I'll say
We've
is that the best thing about Saved by the Bell is that there's a YouTube channel, or no, actually I think it's actually a Netflix show now called Zach Morris is Trash, where they go through every episode and just talk about look with a real person's eye, so Zach just betrays his friends, tries to undercut them, and then says he's sorry, but actually doubles back and double crosses them, gets the girl, but then it ends up being okay at the end. Zach Morris is
Saved
Trash.
by the Bell there's no logic to why the show was good.
No.
The
Right,
whole
because it wasn't good.
is The whole is 18 times greater than the sum of the parts. Like, if you break it down, it's garbage. But if you just sat down and watched it in the 90s, it was there. But nobody picked it, so we don't need to admonish it.
Valid.
True.
Everybody loves Raymond.
Yeah, it's on my list. That was
Yeah,
on my
you know,
list.
I was thinking about picking it, but it hit a little too close to home.
Raymond, why didn't you pick me?
Sorry,
Oh, that was so good.
I could have done the voices if I picked it, but I
The
didn't.
Drew Carey Show.
That was another one that was on my list. But
I
Cleveland
just
doesn't
didn't
rock,
like it.
so I didn't want to play the theme song.
You're not wrong, but there was also 3 other theme songs that they had used in that show, and some of them weren't terrible. Let's see, guys. Fresh out the box. Stop, look, and watch. Ready yet? Get set. It's all.
Oh, that was
there.
another one on my list.
So Keenan and Kel was on my list.
Keenan Kel was
strictly
on my
because-
list too.
Keenan and Kel was budget all that because Keenan and Kel got started in all that,
Yeah.
and
It
so
did.
you would have if you would have taken all that, you would have just also gotten Keenan and Kel.
Do you get the Amanda show too? Because if that's the case,
sure.
I don't want it.
You didn't like the Amanda show? That show was funny. That show was great.
Rugrats. You guys took cartoons that
Rugrats was on there.
Rugrats.
I don't like
Rugrats is up
Rugrats.
there.
You didn't take Doug. Okay.
Okay, hold on. No one has strong opinions about Doug. Doug is a fine
dare
show. Doug is a fine show.
You into the ground. Doug was too deep for your simple brain,
my
Blevin.
I watched
Couldn't
Doug the movie
comprehend
in
the brilliance
theaters.
that you were watching.
Doug was a good show. I
phenomenal.
like Doug. It was a good show.
As
I don't
far as
feel
best
strongly
cartoons
about
of all
Doug.
time go,
We all like Skeeter better
top
though.
2. I'm
You're
saying
saying
that right now.
Doug is top 2?
Get out of here with your crap.
That's
that
not
is a
top
hot take.
2.
Oh,
my
that's his number 1. Okay, finish this theme. Camp on Awana, we hold you in our hearts, and when we think about you,
I got nothing.
you're
wanna
both dead to
fart?
me. It makes me want to fart. Thank you, A. Smith.
Oh, I don't know. I was guessing.
Salute your shorts was another one on my list here.
Is that like an early 90s one?
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Is that the game show?
That show scared the
Yes.
crap out of me as a
The
child.
show was incredible.
Those
Yeah,
freaking-
you
Was
never
that the
knew
one where
an
you played
Aztec
video
warrior
games?
Oh
was
my
gonna
gosh,
jump
those
out of your
Aztec
wall and eat
warrior
you.
just like
Yeah.
freaking.
Is that the one where they
scared
played
me
video
to death.
games?
No, they like ran through a temple. Like literally
I'm
just
thinking
ran
of
through a
different
temple.
show.
And the
Was it
people like,
Olmec or whatever? I don't know. That was a phenomenal show.
are you scared of the dark?
Going
Are you
back
afraid of
into-
the dark?
That was
Yeah, afraid
that
of the dark.
I saw and didn't put on my list because I
That
just
show
knew I'd never get
traumatized
to
me as a
take it.
child.
Okay, have you watched one of those episodes like as someone that's older than 7 years old? Because it's actually awful.
What?
I mean,
Are you afraid of the dark?
I don't doubt it.
Oh,
it
no, yeah, but
made me
it's
want to
fine.
pee my pants as a
Context,
child.
you know,
Yeah,
like
no,
context.
no,
Watching it as a kid absolutely matters. They don't have to hold up, but it helps when they do.
Hence why Full House is on this. Okay, go ahead.
Roseanne,
Get out of there!
Roseanne was a '90s show. That was
I-
great.
You can't pick
say
Roseanne
Roseanne. Yeah.
Get over it.
Third Rock from the Sun,
That's another great show that was actually awful if you watch it again.
Law and Order,
Yeah, that's on my
That's a
list.
classic.
Classic.
the Blevins special Beavis and Butthead. I'm
I
surprised.
had that. I had that on my list. I almost queued it up over Ren and Stimpy.
I'm just a Bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
Schoolhouse Rock?
Schoolhouse Rock was not taken.
That is not a 90s show. Get the fuck out of here with that.
Wrong.
When were its air
Earth
dates?
Is Carmen San Diego.
Okay,
I
that's
can't.
one.
No,
I expected Blevins to be picking The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
that was a good
Nope,
show. I love
too
that
young
show.
for that show.
I love
Bill
that
Nye
show.
the Science Guy. Bill.
Get outta here,
Bill.
Trash.
Dinosaurs and Coach were the last two on my list.
Coach
as
is a
well.
good one.
Coach was just one that was me.
Oh,
and I'm like,
my
I
God,
can't
you know
pick it,
what one I
but
forgot
I
to
need to
pick
go watch that. Where can I watch that?
Oh
Like,
my god!
seriously.
You know, can I
Coach?
can I
Yeah.
can I addend to pick? I'm not gonna try.
Probably
I-
anywhere because the IP owners of Coach probably just released the rights to it to the public. It's probably
That'd be
just
awesome.
right now.
We didn't
Okay,
pick
other shows,
SpongeBob
Beverly
SquarePants.
That's not there. Is it 90s?
What show didn't you guys
It's
think
our
was 90s?
criteria.
Schoolhouse Rock? Okay, I'll go find
I
it.
don't know.
Is
Beverly
that from,
Hills
the
90210 was
70s or
not
something?
picked.
Maybe I just don't.
Beverly Hills 90210, Walker, Texas Ranger, Step by Step,
I've
The
never heard of
Nanny,
that.
Step by step. Yeah, you're wrong
Yeah.
on that. How do you not?
Fran Drescher.
Blevins didn't know what TGIF was when we
X-Files.
started this conversation.
X-Files.
Okay, sure.
How is
sure.
X-Files not there?
Because it sucked.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Yeah, I
Xena,
left that off
Princess
on purpose.
Warrior.
Same.
Hey, Smith,
I mean,
you've got a lot of similarities to a 13-year-old girl in terms of what
Look,
TV
my
you
wife
watch.
also
Come
helped me
on,
make this
Blevins,
list.
you're
Oh,
wrong.
okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. You literally
my wife's 5
consulted.
years older than me, so
Oh, okay.
like I was like, hey, what else was going on in the 90s that was like uber popular? And she was like, oh, these shows. And I was
Schoolhouse
like,
Rock
okay.
first aired in 1973, but
Okay,
ended
that-
in 1996.
Okay, that at least is what
Over
I
half
thought.
of the decade had active Schoolhouse Rock episodes.
No, that's
Um,
fine. I just when I think of it, I think of the old songs from the like 70s
Yeah.
and 80s. Okay,
Yeah.
that
So-
syncs up. That works.
All in all, I think Blevins didn't throw as hard as he did the last time.
Did not.
So I think we're
Still
looking
through,
at a
but-
closer draft. I also think this topic had less of a clear 101. I think Friends and Seinfeld are pretty close, but
Yeah.
I do think Seinfeld was the only correct answer. I
think you're wrong, but
I would absolutely steel cage deathmatch you over that in a heartbeat. But just makes me wish you had the first overall pick.
we'll let the viewers
and I could have
decide.
gone second.
God, that would
also,
have just made me mad that I wasn't second. If I got
Blevins picked Pokemon, Ren and Stimpy, and Mystery Science Theater 3000, but doesn't like Boy Meets World as a pick. I'm just throwing out there.
I
I
stand
think
by that.
Blevins
I
has
stand
no
by
class
that.
and no culture
class.
Stand by it.
whatsoever.
Get him out of here.
You're just dead inside. Like your heart is just a cold, shriveled thing in the middle of your chest at this point. That just doesn't make any sense. But yeah,
I
that's
can't
gonna
help that.
that's going to wrap up the episode, guys. We will be putting a poll up on Twitter, so if you listen to this and you want to weigh in who you think's best, you can start tweeting at us or Discord, conversating at us at any time. But yeah, these are our teams. Again, I had Seinfeld, Boy Meets World, Sopranos, Freaks and Geeks, The Wonder Years, The West Wing, A. Smith, Friends, Fresh Prince, Full House, Family Matters, Whose Line Is It Anyways, and Spider-Man. Blevins had The Simpsons, Pokemon, Frasier, Ren and Stimpy, That 70s Show, and Mystery Science Theater 3000. Guys, we don't know exactly what the schedule for this show is going to be like as we go through the downtime, the break here. But we do hope to, if nothing else, if we don't have anything to talk about, if they take a while to announce the stage 3 format, we'll come back in 2 weeks and do another one of these drafts for you guys. Something we
More
won't be
drafts.
too long. We really, really enjoy these things, and we hope you guys enjoy listening to them. So thank you so much for the Blevins, for A. Smith. I am Deathblow, and we will see you guys all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. See you.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world.